My mother is a very artistic person. She dedicated her life to art. She was a rather eccentric painter. She had the idea of having 4 children and naming us in order to spell out love with our first initials. She passed unexpectedly last year, leaving me and my 2 siblings. She never got to complete the word love. When I was younger, I asked her what happens if you get too old and can't have a baby anymore, or something along those lines, and she told me that one of us could have a baby and finish it for her. She said it wouldn't be the same, but the tribute would make me happy. My parents had marital problems up till her death because of my father's infidelity. I think she put off having the 4th child for quite some time because of it. However, she always said baby Elise or Amelia would be completing our family soon. I was around 6 to 7 months pregnant when my father and his wife and former mistress announced their pregnancy. She said she would finally bring little Emilio into our family. My sister and I were horrified and spoke to my dad privately that while Mom did want someone to continue on the acronym idea, we found it disrespectful to do it with the woman he was cheating on her with. I told him about how she said she wanted one of us to carry on the name when I was a child. He shut me down, saying that she probably expected her and me to still be together, and that it'll be better with all you guys in the same generation of the family, and left it at that. My brother agreed. 2 weeks before I gave birth, they found out that they were not having a boy as they had hoped, but a girl. I realized I could take the name Elise before they would have a chance to name their baby my mother's chosen name. They could name her Emily or something else, but it wouldn't be the name my mother chose, and that's what mattered to me, so I did. My father and especially my stepmother are furious at me for ruining my mother's lasting wishes and tarnishing her idea. While my sister agrees with me, she won't say it to my dad since the birth. My aunt and other families on my dad's calling me names from petty and troublemaking to just outright a witch. I didn't expect so much backlash, and it's really stressing me out with just giving birth, and they're taunting me by posting pictures of their ultrasounds with captions like the E-baby is coming and 3 is the crowd but 4 is love. It's driving me crazy, and it feels like this rift in the family is all for nothing since they're going to claim their baby is the real E-baby anyways. I forgot to add this in. My stepmom approached me and asked me for permission and politely asked me to change my mind about the baby's name once she caught wind that I was already planning on naming the baby Elise. This is part of why I think I could be the idiot. I never actually officially announced the name first. I felt like it would be more special naming the baby when they arrived, not before. Not the idiot. So weird your dad thinks it's even remotely appropriate to name a child of his mistress to honor his late wife. Tell stepmom to pick in our name and honor her own relationship. Of our, because she's the other lover. Burn. Her next kid could be Cecilia, Ursula, Natalie, Tina. I can't understand how the stepmom is going along with it. If I was in that situation and my husband told me he wanted us to name our child after the legacy of his late wife, I'd be a bit shocked even without any cheating. At this point, I would lean into the pettiness since you're already being called out for it and put him and his mistress on blast for the world to see. To take the idea my mother came up with that she wanted her children to carry out, I mean, aren't you tired? You lack such originality. You have to steal from a dead woman. Wasn't sleeping with her husband enough for you? I mean, I can't wait to tell my new half-sibling the origin of her name, and about the deceased woman who started the tradition and the mistress who slept with the woman's husband and still wasn't satisfied. That'll burn like napalm. It might burn a bridge as well, though, if that matters at this point. The baby won't be a sibling you grew up with, in addition to having no connection to your mother. Your father's trying to use your mother's dream to force you to have a bond with your half-sibling. That likely won't happen because you'll be too focused on raising your own child. Don't let him foist your step-sibling on you to babysit under some guise of developing sibling bonds. Honey, your baby is the real E-baby and always will be. You know that, your sister knows that, and I bet your mom knows that. So I, 22 female, am the eldest of 6 siblings, 19 teen, young teen, and tween twins. The 19-year-old is at uni in another city some distance away. My parents unexpectedly need to go visit relatives abroad, and have asked if I could look after the kids for a week. This is generally fine, except for one day I'm attending a course in another city. I have to leave my parents' house at around 6:40 a.m. and won't return until 7 or 8 p.m. Luckily, my boyfriend, who I live with, is off that day and is happy to help. When I told my mother this, she was incredibly appreciative, and I thought nothing more about it. Well, fast forward to today, 2 days before they leave, and my mom asked if my boyfriend's okay with getting up so early to get out of here. We live in the city. Parents are out in the suburbs about an hour by bus. I tell her that that's okay. He'll just come through the night before. To say my mother freaked out is an understatement. Mom, and where exactly will he be sleeping? Me on the pullout with me? Mom, absolutely not under my roof. Now to be clear, when my boyfriend and I first started dating, on the couple of occasions we did visit my parents together, we did sleep in separate rooms. However, my parents always said that that was just because they didn't know him. And earlier this year, before we were living together, my entire family rented an Airbnb for a wedding and there were zero issues about my boyfriend sharing with me. Not only was it not a big deal, but my mom specifically made the room arrangements and put us together without any discussions from me. So I was pretty blindsided by this reaction today. I checked the timetable and he'd need to get the bus just after 5 a.m. to guarantee he'd be there before I had to leave. And presumably, my mother was also expecting him to leave once I returned that night, meaning he'd potentially be getting home around 10 p.m. That's a ridiculously long day, and far too big an expectation for someone who's doing you a favor. I advised my mom as such and reminded her about the Airbnb and the fact that we already lived together, and she reiterated that there would be none of that under my roof. For the record, the couch is in the living room, which has no closable doors, just open archways to the hallway in the dining room. As such, there is zero chance that we'll be doing anything scandalous over those 2 nights. I told her this, but she still maintained that it's her house, so her rules. I told her that I felt my terms were more than fair, and that if she didn't like them, then she should find someone else for the week, and hung up. She's been texting, calling me selfish, and saying how this means she'll need to stay behind and she hopes I'm proud of myself. I made it clear that it really doesn't mean that. There's a pretty easy fix here. Edit. The pullout is my parents' bed. It's in a little recess in the corner. They downsized last year. It's a 2-bedroom, and the other rooms are already crowded with my siblings, and we'd have to sleep on the floor, which I'm also unwilling to do. Not the idiot. My house, my rules isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card for being an idiot. Mom, in this instance, is being an idiot with her idiot rule. Doubly so in light of OP being an adult and doing her a favor. It's even more ridiculous when you consider OP and boyfriend living together. Mom can clutch her pearls to her heart's desire while she looks after her own kids. Mom is free to have rules. However, this is absurd. You're doing them a favor, a pretty big one, and asking your boyfriend to get on a bus at 5 a.m. to look after your siblings is a tall ask. He'll be knackered. It's better for everyone that he gets to stay the night. I also don't quite get your mom's logic. Read the Airbnb. She'll not allow you to share a bed under her own roof, but will happily pay for you to share one so you can attend a wedding. If she's that determined to force 2 adults to sleep separately, she can likely hire 1 adult for the week. Stop visiting until your mom respects your relationship. You were right to set that boundary with her. I, female 31, have a sister 25, and we were super close growing up because our parents weren't very active in our lives and put their marriage above us. So it was just the 2 of us. At a young age, I had to pick up being her 3rd parent, and it made me resent her for years because she could seemingly have a normal childhood and I didn't. I did get over it though. When I graduated from college, I left my home state and moved to Arizona with my husband, 35. My sister and I barely talked after that because I was busy with my career and marriage. Now I have a young daughter and I'm currently pregnant with twins. On Wednesday, I received a long text message from my sister, and she told me she was getting married and wanted me to walk her down the aisle. I was happy for her until she told me her wedding date. Her wedding is 10 days after my due date. I have no interest in traveling that soon after I give birth, and I definitely have no interest in leaving my husband with 3 kids. I want to get used to being a family of 5 together, just like how we got used to being a family of 3 together. So, I told my sister that I couldn't attend because I would only be a week or 2 postpartum and I didn't feel like flying across the country that soon. She tried asking if my husband would watch the kids, but I told her that I'm not leaving my kids that are that young across the country and they're too young to fly on a plane. She got angry with me and told me that she wanted to catch up with me and hadn't seen me in years. So, I replied that we would need to catch up on another day. She ended up hanging up the phone, and now since our conversation, I've been getting emails from her bridesmaids that I intentionally was trying to hurt my sister. I feel like I'm doing the right thing by putting my family and myself above a wedding. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You really didn't have a choice. You physically won't be able to travel. Surely, You understand her request is ludicrous given the circumstances. Resenting her because your parents were bad parents is irrelevant. You literally can't go. You'll be physically recovering from birth and adjusting to life with brand new twins. This seems too cruel to be true. 10 days after birth to leave newborn babies alone is one issue. You, having given birth to twins, be asked to travel 10 days after on a plane multiple hours is another. Your sister still insisting you can do it is unreal. She would have known you were expecting if she'd been active in your life. If you were so important to her to be in the wedding, she would have checked before setting the date. Block the witchy bridesmaids and ignore them. And there's no guarantee on the due date. It's an estimate. OP might give birth mere days before the wedding or might have a C-section that takes a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks to heal from before anything strenuous. And travel is strenuous. It's an absurd expectation. OP best wishes to you and the twins. I nearly adult non-binary live 50-50 with my mom and my dad and stepmom. I recently asked my stepmom to drive me to the drugstore to buy hair dye. I don't have a license. She said yes. And when we got there, I picked out some silver hair dye. She got a sour look on her face and tried to convince me to go with any other color. But I said no because I wanted silver. I asked her why she was so insistent, and she said that silver hair was making fun of older people. She's in her late 40s and has a fair amount of natural gray hair. She said that if I dye my hair silver, she'd take my phone until I dyed it a different color. I told her she couldn't do that because my mom paid for my phone, not her or my dad. She said it doesn't matter because she's my parent and can discipline me however she wants. I said fine and we left without buying any hair dye. Well, a few days later, I went to my mom's house, and she helped me dye my hair silver anyway. She didn't say anything about it being offensive and even said it looked great. The other day, I returned to my dad's house with my silver hair, and my stepmom freaked out. She did try to take my phone, but my dad stopped her because surprise, surprise, my mom pays for it and she can't just take it without talking to my mom. She huffed and called me a disrespectful, spoiled brat, her exact words, because I ran to my mom to avoid the rules. My dad later asked me in private to dye my hair a different color to keep the peace, and he even said he'd pay for the dye if I just would let my stepmom think she won. I said no and threatened to stay with my mom full time if she tried to punish me for my hair. My dad called me stubborn. They're both being cold to me now, and I'm wondering if I'm really being entitled. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Stick to your guns. They can make the rules about their house but not about your body or what you choose to do with it. Sounds like the stepmom is projecting her insecurities about getting older onto you, and dad just wants to keep getting laid. Yep, she's obviously sour grapes about getting older. I vote to stay with your mom full time. Stepmom is on a power trip, and your dad is enabling her. This will keep happening until you leave. Just so you know, my mom, who's 69 and whose hair is 100% naturally light gray, loves this young people dyeing their hair silver trend. It makes her feel proud of her own hair. My 29 best friend 29 is getting married this fall. I'm the best man. We have a bachelor party in Vegas. His fiancée, a bit of a control freak, has badgered me a few times about what we've planned for the trip. To be honest, I don't have many concrete plans in place yet, and I've told her this. After maybe the 4th time she asked, I told her I didn't know the plans yet, and I wouldn't be telling her anyway. She got all huffy and puffy about it, and I basically told her to screw off and that my job is to throw a fun party for my friend, not to get it approved by her. My friend tells me I should apologize even though he agrees with me because it'll stop her from nagging him. I don't want her to keep annoying him, but I also don't want her to think she has a right to do what she's doing. We have other married friends and none of them said their wives did anything like this. Edit. I'd advise him not to hook up at the club, but if someone else wants it, I won't stop it. I'd 100% keep it a secret. Why would I say something? The plan is to relax and have fun. We don't need a full day of plans done ahead of time. We're just gonna wing most of it. If all he means is apologize for telling her to screw off, then I agree. You could have declined her request in all the ways you described, without going at her like that. This is your friend's fiancé, and your priority in his life will change. You want to be an idiot here because you're right, but you're going down the wrong path if this is your best friend. Everybody sucks here. She's not asking for a second-by-second itinerary. She wants a general outline of where her fiancé will be while he's away, and what y'all are planning. And there isn't even a reason to believe that she'd object to any of it. She just wants to be aware. Are you required to tell her? No. But you're literally part of this woman's wedding party, holding a meaningful place in her wedding. And not only do you clearly hate her, but you're also deliberately antagonizing her, swearing at her, and your examples of why she's so awful just aren't. If they ran into their partner's old friends at a bar, most people would expect to be introduced. Takes half a second and it's rude not to. For someone who's almost 30, you sound about 16, belligerent and exhausting. But of course you are the idiot. I agree. Why don't you have a little empathy for her, even if she's being a bit extra, and just give her a sense of the kind of things you're thinking about doing? This is the woman your friend has chosen to spend the rest of his life with. You need to have respect for her. God forbid she wants to know where you guys will be in case of an emergency. You could have just eased her anxiety. But instead, you're rude as crap to the woman your supposed best friend is marrying. You're the best man. Act like, my 23 male parents, 43 male and 45 female, divorced when I was 8. I stayed with my dad full-time and visited my mom 2 weekends a month. My dad stayed single for all my childhood and adolescence. I met Josh, 34 male, 1.5 years ago because he was my boss at the company I started working half-time for while finishing college, same field. Josh and I started getting along so well and hanging out, I even met his wife, Mary, 30, a couple of times. Well, for my 22nd birthday, I decided to throw a party and invite Josh and Mary to come. My dad was there too, of course, and I introduced them to him. They shook hands, shared some info, and that was it. That was their whole interaction during my birthday party. Like 2 weeks later, Josh came to me saying that my dad was amazing and a fun dude, and then let me know that he and his wife had some beers with him. From that point, they became best friends. My dad would constantly go to their house on weekends to have some grill or whatever. They also invited me, but I never went. 3 months ago, Josh told me that my dad was an idiot and a homewrecker who seduced his wife to cheat on him and got her pregnant. I called my dad to know what was going on, and he told me that Mary left Josh to be with my dad because they had an affair and she was pregnant, and also told me that they loved each other. I found out that they'd been having an affair for a year almost immediately after they met for the first time. They planned to get married after the twin babies, boy and girl, are born and Mary's divorce is finalized. Not going to lie, I feel guilty because if I hadn't invited Mary and Josh, they would have never met my dad and this wouldn't have happened. But I can't look at my dad the same way I did. He went after a married woman who had a tween son. I know he's a great dad to me and I love him very much, and I know he'll be a great stepdad and dad to these new children, but I just can't look at him the same way I did. So I still talk to him, but I try to keep my distance as much as possible. He invited me to their baby shower, but I said I couldn't go because I didn't feel comfortable. He asked me why, so I said, Dad, to be honest, I can't look at you the same way. You went after a married woman with a child. You got her pregnant and now want to act as if nothing has happened. He told me this doesn't affect me in any way, and that his love life shouldn't be my problem, but I had to quit the job since Josh had become insufferable. My mom and friends say that I should support my dad because I don't know what Josh's and Mary's relationship was like, which is true, I don't, but I can't help but feel guilty and sorry for Josh. Not the idiot. He slept with your boss's wife and you quit your job because your boss blamed you. He can't pull the "it's none of your business" card when he aimed his adultery at your career, the audacity. I hate to break it to you, but great dads don't sleep with the spouse of their child's boss. Great dads don't intentionally nuke a young boy's family. Great dads don't try to rug sweep their own atrocious behavior. Unfortunately, he has not been a great dad as of late. Boy, your mom and her friends are wrong. It doesn't matter what Josh and Mary's marriage was like. What matters is that your dad slept with a married woman, got her pregnant, caused a family to crumble, and screwed you out of a job. Probably would have happened with someone else. Their marriage was not that solid if she was so quickly able to cheat. No one can steal someone else's spouse. A spouse is a person, not an object. They have free will. They're the ones cheating. This Mary is wholly responsible for her own situation. She could have said no at any time. Of course she chose to cheat. But OP's father played the best friend card with OP's boss to get closer to his wife. It is a far more idiotic move, seducing a married woman when you know her husband. Especially when the husband is your son's boss and he's the one who introduced you. I understand why OP has lost respect for his father. If I were in your shoes, I would never have anything to do with my dad again. That is an awkward position to put you in. And it's not fair to you that he used your birthday party to pick up on another man's wife. I, female 32, have a friend who we'll call Ellie, female 32. I've known Ellie since we were around 7. Our mothers are good friends. Ellie has had a very, very privileged life. Her dad is a lawyer, and her mom is a dentist. So, as you can imagine, Ellie had many more luxuries and opportunities than your average person. She grew up attending private schools, having private tutors, going on fancy vacations every year, etc. I won't go into too much detail, but I didn't have a life like Ellie's. Ellie never had to get a job until she went into residency in medical school when she was 26. When we finished high school at 18, Ellie initially went to business school for 2 years before dropping out, then pursuing medical school. Her parents paid her tuition and living expenses, so Ellie never struggled financially and never had to worry about money. Plus, her mother got Ellie volunteering opportunities so she could get references on her medical school applications. Ellie is now a qualified pediatrician. I'm glad she was able to find a career path she enjoys, and I'm proud of her for finishing school. I know medical school is no walk in the park. I'm a veterinarian. A few weeks ago we went to a town event, and we bumped into some of my old friends from high school. We chatted for a few minutes, and one of them proudly mentioned she had finished nursing school. When we went to my house afterward, Ellie made a very rude comment about my old friend, saying I bet she was just too dumb to go to medical school, and went on about how great she is. I told Ellie that what she said was rude and uncalled for. Ellie said it was the truth. I snapped and told Ellie, "You only became a doctor by getting handouts. You don't get to make comments about other people." Ellie started yelling at me and telling her that I was a jerk for undermining her hard work, and that she still had to work for where she was now. I told her that I knew she still had to work hard, but most people don't have parents who can pay all their tuition and living expenses, and she had it easier. Ellie called me a jerk again and said that I was ignorant and that she still had to work hard. Not the idiot. Many people aren't intelligent enough for medical school, but can only dream of becoming doctors due to classes barriers in place. Many medical schools have rules against students having jobs during their studies. Ellie sounds naive and sheltered. Her comment was insulting and unnecessary. Nurses are essential for medical establishments to function. Ellie's looking down on a profession that medical facilities need to work. She makes doctors look bad. Unfortunately, when it comes to higher education, intelligence and hard work frequently aren't enough. So, her comment isn't even true. Ellie had to work hard at medical school. Ellie did not have to work hard in life. Ain't when people don't acknowledge their privilege. Her comment was very nasty and uncalled for. So, good on you for calling her out. I keep getting into an argument with my wife and it keeps getting worse. We are due to have our first child, our first together. She has 3 older children that live with us later this month. I bought tickets for a concert approximately 3 weeks after her delivery date, if we make it that far. And she keeps accusing me of not caring for wanting to go to it, saying she can't believe I care more about a concert than our daughter. And how could I want to leave her? I told her that one night out shouldn't be that big of a deal. I'm already using 6 weeks of paid time off I've accumulated at my job to be there when the baby's born, to be around full time. And one night away for a few hours shouldn't be that big of a deal. To be fair, there are also a few football games my family has season tickets to that I said I'd still like to go to, but not all of them. But getting away for a while would probably be good to refocus with the stress of a new baby. In that same vein, I've kept telling her that I can take care of the baby so she can get out from time to time if it's an hour or an afternoon. And before this became a problem, I also bought her tickets for a concert about 2 weeks after the one I'm going to. So about 5 weeks after delivery, where I purchased her sit-down seats to attend because it's one of her favorite artists. I told her I'd take care of the baby for the night and she could go with her mom and enjoy the concert. But instead she says she won't be going because she couldn't leave the baby and doesn't understand how I'm just okay leaving the baby for an evening. Am I an idiot and unreasonable for wanting some planned time away to recoup? Oh dear, are you serious? You are the idiot because your plan for each of you to go to concerts right after your baby is due is dangerous, not just ignorant. You do know that your newborn can't be vaccinated, right? So for the first 2 months, your newborn baby is especially vulnerable. You may not know, but recovering from childbirth takes weeks to months. Childbirth is a major medical event. Do you care about your baby or your wife? Buddy, no. You think you'll need a break 3 weeks after she gives birth, but she doesn't get one? unless you have support lined up for her while you take the night off. Unquestionably, 100% you are the idiot. She'll need you home. You have no idea what life will be like 3 weeks postpartum. My oldest was still in NICU, which was completely unexpected. I would have divorced my ex-husband sooner if he'd gone away during that time. You're making many plans when you have no idea what your life will look like after the baby's here. I feel so bad for your wife. Paternity and maternity leave is not vacation time. To start with, I worked for a salary as soon as it was legal for me to do so in the UK. I reached a point in my life and career where after bills and savings, I can afford stuff like designer jewelry, bags, shoes, etc. That hasn't always been the case. My family's Asian, and since they got married, my parents have fully supported my dad's family and given financial help to my mom's parents when they needed it. It wasn't unusual for my parents to take me shopping every 3 to 4 months to buy new clothes for my cousins while I got hand-me-downs or second-hand clothes from charity shops and car boot sales. Even when I started earning money, I would have to put it into my parents' account and only get back 10 to 20 pounds a week. Meanwhile, my cousins could ask for new phones, styling products, bikes, etc., and it would be bought for them. So, while as a household we were probably making enough income to count as middle class, we were ourselves living frugally. This continued well into when I began uni. Around that time, however, my uncle's wife started making comments about my parents paying for their kids' university fees, weddings, and them inheriting the house they lived in, which is jointly owned by my parents and has been willed to me. That was the wake-up call they needed to realize that they were going beyond just helping out their family in need but were actually funding their lifestyle while effectively depriving themselves. After I paid off my student loans and had enough saved for a deposit on a property, I realized I had enough to treat myself, so I started to buy some of the mentioned designer goods. I guess my cousins saw stuff on my IG and started messaging me, along with their mother, to harass me, saying that they had been forced to get jobs while I'm just splashing my cash on things I don't need. I can indeed send them money, but I want to have nice things for myself for once. Does that make me the idiot? Not the idiot. You might want to pass all these messages to your parents with the caption, "Now they want me to send them all my money too." They are parasites. Tell your cousin you also had to get a job to afford the things you bought. If they want designer crap, they can earn it just like you did. Cut off these leeches. They will not stop drinking your blood on their own. Get your tiny violin and play them the saddest song you know. OP, this is survivor's guilt. You are absolutely not responsible for what money they have available to them. You've done well for yourself through hard work and prudent savings. It would be best if you work through any guilt you might have. Enjoy the life you've made for yourself, and you deserve it, not the moochers. Maybe you should treat your parents to some nice things, since they also didn't get the chance to enjoy luxuries. I'm not saying you have to, but it would be nice since they were being taken advantage of for so long. No, don't treat your parents to anything. They deprived you their child so that your cousins could live it up. Honestly, this is insane. Providing the extended family with brand new clothes, while their kids get secondhand stuff and hand-me-downs. Confiscating that kid's earnings to give to extended family? I'm on board with the notion that family helps family, and that relatives step up to provide a safety net in extraordinary circumstances. However, in this case, OP's relatives don't want a safety net, they want a hammock. My 56 female, youngest son, 30, recently married his wife, 29. We live in different states, and usually only see each other for holidays, etc. Our son's elder brother, 33, was recently diagnosed with autism. While our younger son, and now wife, daughter-in-law were still dating, he brought her home to us so we could meet her. She's always been a little off. She's shy and awkward, and prefers doing stuff on a computer to being outdoors. My husband and I are very outdoorsy and live a very active life, so I guess we clashed a bit there. She's always been nice, and in the beginning, she participated in many of our activities, even if she wasn't great at them. After his diagnosis, she comforted our elder son, which was a hard blow for all of us. She said she also felt awkward and weird at times, and that it was okay to be different. I suspected maybe she meant this as a way of telling us that she was on the spectrum too. About 2 years ago, they had their first kid. They had some issues conceiving and lost a baby before having their daughter. She's a great kid and we love her so much. However, since their daughter was born, my daughter-in-laws become even more awkward around us. We invited them over to celebrate the 4th of July. Daughter-in-law was tired and didn't participate in any outdoor activities, but instead insisted on working on the computer, while our son was the one playing with his daughter outdoors. I asked her what was she doing in front of the screen all the time, and she told me she was just catching up on work. This just seemed off to me because why wouldn't she want to play outside with her husband and kid? So my husband and I spoke privately about our worries that she's not participating in her daughter's childhood and leaving it all to her husband. We both agreed that we should talk to her about it. After dinner, yes, drinks were involved. I went away to do the dishes and heard raised voices. When I returned to the table, daughter-in-law was crying as my husband told her off quite sharply. He said some things that might have been a bit harsh but nothing untrue. She stormed off crying instead of discussing the issue further. I followed her to try and discuss the situation, and told her we were just worried about her, them as a couple, and their daughter. This was when I told her I thought she should seek help or counseling for autism, as I figured that was why she was struggling with motherhood. She was highly offended, and told me that she was not autistic, but suffering from PPD. They packed their bags and left in a hurry. Later we saw that she had unfriended my husband and me on Facebook, and blocked us from messaging her. They haven't spoken a word to us since. Our son is apparently furious, according to his brother. We can't reach out to explain our side of things now that we're both blocked. Both of us meant well, and it came from a place of worry for our grandchild. Am I the idiot? Let me drop a bug in your ear. This woman finds you and your husband just about as obnoxious as the rest of us on this thread. She forces herself to attend family functions, so her husband can see his parents, and you and your husband can spend time with your grandchild. That's why she gets on her computer and works, to spare herself the unpleasantness of spending time with you. I'll read between the lines. Your husband had a few drinks, and decided to harass your daughter-in-law. You didn't mind because you agreed with what he said. I don't think your son will give your husband another chance to play tipsy narc with her, or you another opportunity to go right behind him, tearing her down some more. Good for them. You are the idiot in every conceivable way. Your son and daughter-in-law have gone no contact. No contact means just that, no contact. You're a busybody, and your husband made your son's wife cry. Actions have consequences. Your actions cut you off from your son and grandchild. How are you surprised that this is the outcome? Good luck with never seeing you. Thank you for stopping by the channel. Here are a couple of Reddit cheating stories for your listening pleasure. This is long, but I've been struggling on and off for a month, and anyone who can offer some feedback, my heart goes to you. My wife and I are effectively high school sweethearts from different schools together since 16 together. 20 years married for 12, one daughter trying for our second child. Like a lot of infidelity stories, we were not at our highest emotional peak. When it happened, we spent much of 2021 trying for our second child. The pressures and disappointments of it not happening were hard on both of us, knowing how especially hard it had been on her. I constantly tried to be the "it's okay. Next month we just try again" person with a brave, optimistic face, which was apparently interpreted as "I didn't care." Sex became so regimented around an ovulation schedule. It sucked a lot of fun out of it. She wanted more spice and felt like her needs weren't getting met in that way. But, on the flip side, I had historically hit a lot of brick walls and nose around creativity. So, I too felt like my own needs were underserved. There were some communication roadblocks around all of it. There were also the all too typical challenges of being new parents with limited childcare outside of when we are both at work, not a lot of us time, which leads to a rut feeling. And the feeling of just being at the job and parent. I should note that one thing that makes all of this so much harder is that I am not the jealous or possessive type. And I mean at all. In 20 years I felt like trust and faithfulness was a pillar of our relationship. I was also well aware of feeling like we were in a pressure rut, and I was proactively taking big steps to fix that. I was taking steps as major as completely changing my role at work. So my hours meant I would be home almost nightly. I had to work evenings about 3 times a week, which was getting hard on all of us. After relying on family for most of 3 years, I was seeking a local sitter to make sure we could start to have a regular day-night going forward. And I had some spice-up ideas and gifts lined up for that holiday in February. I know there are ups and downs in long-term relationships, and that the situation we were in was challenging, but always worth working through. During the fall, she befriended a new male coworker. Like I said, I'm not any jerk jealous and thought nothing of it. A lot of early communication was around sharing he and his wife's own fertility issues with child number 2. As time passed, it seemed like he was mentioned more and more in work stories, even though they definitely don't work directly with one another. But again, not the jealous type. A few months ago, we had another crushing month of not getting pregnant. She was particularly emotional this time around and texted me from work saying she had a coworker, made it sound like a girlfriend, asking to take her out for a drink in response to her hard day and asking, would I be fine if she did that while I had our daughter? Of course, go have fun, get your mind off things, chat with a friend. Hell, I've been trying to convince you to do things like this every once in a while for a long time, but you constantly cite mom guilt, please go. I am an extremely hands-on dad with caretaking. The kiddo and I have the house held down. Turns out the friend was said coworker. Now I can't stress this enough in 20 years. I don't think I have ever had anything that qualifies as a huge jealous reaction before she claimed it was platonic, but I was pissed. In retrospect, her failure to mention who the coworker was felt like an intentional omission. She and I rarely had child coverage to have a date night. But in this case, I was used as the childcare to go out for drinks one-on-one with another guy. And in response to her extremely emotional state, I explained that this was a big emotional boundary issue in my eyes. For contrast, I explained that if I had a married female coworker who was feeling emotionally fragile, I would never take her out for drinks one-on-one without knowing her husband personally, or more importantly, knowing it was something he was aware of and comfortable with. She made me sound like I was crazy for thinking it was anything more than just drinks with a friend, but it just didn't pass the straight face test for me. But I quickly gathered myself, talked more rationally about how I felt. She acknowledged that she wasn't thinking about it from my point of view, and we moved on. Fast forward just under 2 months. It's 6 a.m. and our daughter is always up early. We often alternate getting up with her so the other can get a little bit more sleep. I take her downstairs and we use my wife's work iPad to run the PBS Kids app. I am not a snoop, but as I go to get it set up, I'm taken aback by the iPad home screen being littered with notifications of private chat messages with this employee, talking about coming over to our house at 7 p.m. the previous night, how they have a fun, uncomplicated arrangement that will have to be put on hold in a few weeks. The week, my schedule was changing for the reasons I said before and so forth. I was in a total state of shock when I confronted her. She got a look of dread and shame in the little time we had to communicate quietly as to not alert our daughter. I found out that he had been lying to his own family about going to work for his second job, coming over once a week on nights. I worked late for the last 5 weeks straight with the intention to go 2 more rounds until of course my schedule wasn't as convenient for their arrangement. She tried to plead that she never meant to hurt me or our relationship. And she was 100% committed to us. I have never been more frazzled and feeling like I was spiraling in my life. I send a lot of angry texts. As you can imagine, my coworkers knew I wasn't okay. Played it off. Like I got bad news on the family health front and had to leave. There was no way I could focus. I drove home and tried to convince myself. Things weren't as bad as it seemed. I went to reread the messages to see if I reacted too strongly and wouldn't, the two had a new chat going. It was clear that he was aware I found out, but the conversation didn't seem to, oh no. In fact, it was a bizarre combination of chatty Kathy friendly, talk about what they made for food the night before, and her inviting him down to her room at lunch to go through her phone, listing her lock screen password and read her private messages. The angry text, I don't know about any of you, but if you cheated, crap hit the fan and the wound was extremely fresh. Your claim is that you're committed to the relationship. There's something about immediately going to the affair partner and saying, hey, come have lunch with me and go through my phone. Doesn't sit right on the where's your loyalty front. All the hallmarks of emotional and physical betrayal were there, of course, but there were so many reasons that this was extra bad circumstantially. 1, it was done while we were trying to get pregnant with child. Number 2, after bonding with this person over stories about fertility struggles, that alone is messed up too. There is nothing she cited about where her head was at the time that couldn't also be said about me, but I was working on solutions in an extramarital affair. Isn't even on the radar. 3, while we struggled to get us time with the toddler at home, I was effectively used as childcare. So she could have that sort of time out with someone else, which was also the night that talk of each of them wanting more in the bedroom, heated up for as far as wanting more goals. I already mentioned my plans for helping break out of the rut, but she had put up so many brick walls with me. It was hard to even know what direction to go and forget crazy ideas to spice things up. We're talking things most couples would consider pretty basic. She wouldn't please me orally because it gave her lockjaw that she could never do a certain position sexually because it hurt, and that her OBGYN has acknowledged that had something to do with her pelvis, that she was long past wearing anything that wasn't comfortable underneath, that she's been extremely self-conscious about her breasts since nursing and always wanted to keep them covered since. And you know what, even if there were things I wanted, I would never push her in any way. She wasn't comfortable, but come to find out everything she ever took off the table for me was apparently on the table for him during the affair, even busted out lingerie she wore on our wedding night that she never wore for me again. In 12 years, 5 we've been together since we were 16 frigging years old. She is the only person I've ever been with. While it's natural for anyone to have passing curiosities in a lifetime, it creates this imbalance when one person acts on them and only one is left faithful for basically life, whether it was stopping the affair to begin with, or taking extremely active steps to improve communication and things with us. None of these were conclusions that happened on their own. This wasn't a "what have I done? This was a mistake and I need to come clean" moment. This was over time, methodical, and had planned for more, but I got caught. Attempts at improving anything with us in ways she never did before all just feel like concessions. Now the fallout is a long separate story in itself. I spent 2 weeks sleeping on separate floors. Most nights we had big emotional powwows, sometimes in ways that could have been considered productive, but I have a hard time letting the most hurtful thing someone has done to me be viewed as any sort of positive turning point. I have been trying to give reconciliation a shot, but my feelings about it, and what it means for our relationship, are all over the map. Before I say too much about it, I could just really use some feedback to anyone who got through all of that. Thanks for listening. Hello everyone. My marriage story is different than the rest of the stories posted here. It will be a long one as well. Please have a look at it. I am not from the US, but I have been working here in the US since I was 23. And now I am 30 and going to be 31 soon. I am from a developing country, and I did both my bachelor's and master's in computer science engineering from an Ivy League school here in the US. So basically I have been in the US since I was 16. My father is a government employee and my mother is a homemaker. I have an elder sister who is a doctor, and she is married and mother of 2 children. Both me and my sister were brilliant academically. She wanted to be a doctor and she is now. I wanted to be an engineer and wanted to pursue my bachelor's in the US. I am currently working in a world-renowned company that we all know. We use the company products every day in all walks of our life. I have an arranged marriage. When I got married, I was 27 and my wife was 21. After completion of my master's and getting the job in my dream company, I moved to a new city. I stayed with 2 of my friends in a shared accommodation for 3 years. Then one of my friends got married, and so we vacated that place and took our own place to rent. I took a 3-bedroom, 4-bath apartment in a posh area in the city, which is 15 minutes away from my office. I met an American man in the new apartment complex and he was my neighbor. He is a car salesman for a high-end car company distributor, and was sharing the apartment with 2 guys. He helped me a lot. I mean a lot. I considered him as a close friend. He voluntarily would come to me once a week and will ask me if I need help. I would invite him to both lunch and dinner at my place. Almost every weekend, he would come to my place to watch sports. And we will talk about various topics. Whenever I will go home, my mother will send a lot of gifts for him, and he is always very happy to receive them as well. I never asked him about his personal life neither. He also never asked me anything. Anyway, I got married and of course he was invited. And I booked tickets for him and paid for the visa. He was not able to go because of some work-related thing. My wife came with me after her visa processing. I was very happy. My wife is very beautiful. I am a tall guy, 6 feet 3 inches, and my wife is 5 feet 8 inches. She came from a well-established family and a lovely person. She has a bachelor's degree in history. 7 months back, I was at home working and I heard my wife crying. I walked up to her and asked what happened. She was in the living room on the couch watching TV. I thought something on TV she saw made her cry. Upon asking, she started bawling and I was clueless. And I was still thinking it's because of the TV, but I was unable to find anything emotional on the TV. She started saying how sorry she was and how she ruined everything. I was still trying to understand what was happening and told her, "Don't worry. We can always fix whatever was ruined. No need to cry. And she looks ugly while crying and she should always smile." The next 6 to 8 hours were hell for me. She told me how 2 years back for a month I worked 20 hours every day on a very important project. My friend and my wife went on a sex rampage. Basically, she told me I would leave for the office at 3:45 in the morning, and my friend would come over at 4 and they would do their thing. And he would leave right before I got back, right around midnight. It went on for exactly 1 month and everything stopped after that month. Also, my friend left the apartment complex the next month as well. He rarely speaks to me or responds to my text messages anymore. I will write some more but later. Thanks for reading. Don't know what I am asking or interested to know.